workers missed their first full paycheck today, and many of them now struggling to just put food on the table.
We are here to serve everyone, but right now our focus is on the over 700,000 employees that are displaced because of the government shutdown.
Hundreds of people showed up to a food bank here in Southeast DC where they were given produce, personal hygiene items, other household goods. And I talked to some of those federal workers who say they are now struggling, some of them dedicating their entire lives to government service. Now they're asking the government for help.
This is my first furlough since I've been in federal service for the last 17 years. I have children to feed, I have a family to take care of, I have a mortgage to pay. So it's a lot of uncertainty. I've had to tap into my savings, but I'm blessed that there's opportunities like this for us to receive assistance.
We heard from some of them at this DC food bank, which is providing special help to federal employees.
I've actually have never been to a food bank or have done any of this.
I do have a daughter at home. She's a year old. She's eating real food. She's not on formula. So these food banks mean everything.
I drove 2 hours away just to get laid off.
Today is day 23 of the government shutdown, and we are still without a paycheck. I feel like my life has been going through it financially, and also to y'all, I had to humble myself and go to the unemployment office, and it's kind of full circle because I actually went to school for social work and social services.
Someone asked if I was on unemployment. My reply, no, I'm on hopes, dreams, and prayers. Rent is due in 8 days. Congress needs to get it together. Pass something. Get us paid.
I'll keep my own personal opinions to myself when it comes to this government shutdown and government period. What I will say is that there's some bullshit. Not knowing how you're going to recover from something like this is very, very stressful.
Today, hundreds of thousands of U.S. government workers will miss their first paycheck, and many have already been furloughed or laid off. We heard from some of them at this DC food bank, which is providing special help to federal employees.
I've actually have never been to a food bank or have done any of this.
I do have a daughter at home. She's a year old. She's eating real food. She's not on formula. So these food banks mean everything.
With our 13-month-old daughter, we are doing whatever we can to make ends meet.
I also do Uber on the side as like a side hustle. And, it doesn't pay the bills. When you start to actually, look at that first paycheck that's not coming in and you start to look at your expenses, you start to realize that, hey, you actually got to come out here and come to these places.
This upcoming month is going to be a struggle for us.
I'm just taking it one day at a time. And
all I can do is just continue to pray.
I'm looking for another job. I can't go through this again. It's life-altering.
As of October 24th, many federal employees missed their first full paycheck. And this is obviously due to the ongoing federal government shutdown. So I actually made a video on this same topic a few weeks ago about how federal employees are struggling to survive this current government shutdown. So check that out. And this is essentially an update to that video in a sense where now we're seeing these same federal workers having to go to food banks, some for the very first time in their life. These are professional workers who are earning decent or good salaries and are federal employees, literally work for our government, and they are not able, many of them, to effectively feed themselves or to provide for their families. And by the way, this is not a small issue. As you heard in the beginning, they said hundreds of thousands of government employees, and to be exact, approximately 750,000 federal employees have been furloughed, and another 730,000 are considered essential and they're still working. So if we do the math, that's almost 1.5 million federal employees who are currently not being paid. So I quickly wanted to read over some comments from these viewers of this video to get the sentiment of what people are thinking about the situation. So the first comment that I see up here says, one paycheck gone and they're already struggling. Now here's the deal with that. That one seems a bit insensitive to me because at first glance you might go, okay, well, why are these people forced to go to food banks when they're well-paid employees and they've only missed one check? They're not managing their finances properly, you might say. Which some of that may be correct, that may be true for maybe even a large majority of people. However, you have to consider the fact that the cost of living is not cheap right now. And if you take into account a lot of these people have kids, that means they're feeding themselves and their children. And a lot of these people, as you can see, live in DC. DC is not a very cheap place to live by any means. It's one of the most high cost of living areas in the United States. And why do a lot of them live in DC? Well, because you have a lot of federal agencies in DC. So you were forced to, unless you want to have a long commute, live in a high cost of living area with a big family, let's say, say, and maybe you're making $80,000 a year, but if you add up all the costs, it's just not cutting it. So even though you're a highly paid federal employee, you may still be living paycheck to paycheck, and thus if you miss one of those paychecks, you end up in the food line. Another person says, this is crazy. They said get a government job, not anymore. Now this one is close to home because even growing up, I heard that a lot from my family. They would say, hey, if you want to have job security, work for the federal government. Guess what? That doesn't look like it's the case anymore. Between the current furloughs and layoffs that are occurring with the current shutdown. Earlier this year, if you recall, there was a mass wave of federal layoffs rather that occurred. And I know people very personal and close to me who were affected by these layoffs. And now I still know people close to me who are now being affected by the furloughs. As a matter of fact, there's one person I know very closely who went through the layoffs and was actually laid off from the administration or from the agency they worked at, and they were brought back. They thought they were in the clear. And now they're being furloughed and they're working with, or they're not working, actually, they're furloughed and they're not being paid. So this one person this year has been through two furloughs, essentially, no, one layoff and one furlough, both with the federal government.
I drove 2 hours away just to get laid off. My name is Chloe Elise. I am a full-time single working mom of one baby boy. I am a full-time government worker, and then I have content creation as my passion.
Today is day 23 of the government shutdown, and we are still without a paycheck. I had to take a couple of days to myself because personally, I feel like my life has been going through it financially. And also to y'all, I had to humble myself and go to the unemployment office. And it's kind of full circle because I actually went to school for social work and social services. I really started this series to bring light, to be a light unto the world, but also to y'all. Just because I'm bringing light doesn't mean that I'm not going through it. And I know a lot of people, especially after this month, we still have rent to pay, we still have car payments, electricity, grocery bill, and it's not a great feeling to feel like you don't know what's coming next.
How insane is it that a federal employee who is furloughed from their job with the federal government has to go get benefits from the state? I know that unemployment is from the state, not the federal government, but nonetheless, benefits to be able to afford their life, their rent, their mortgage, their food, their car insurance, gas, while they're laid off or while they're furloughed from the federal government. To me, that sounds so sadly ironic. And one might say, okay, well, listen, I pay for these benefits as a taxpayer, so I should be able to use them because I paid for them, I deserve them, right? So I'm a federal worker, sure, I'm furloughed, but these are benefits that I should be granted anyways. Fair point. The issue is you have to pay them back. So once they go back to work, they get their back pay, they have to pay those benefits back. You might say, okay, no harm, no foul. You just take the money you earn that you would have been earning and repay what you got from unemployment. The thing is, a lot of times too, we don't realize that whenever these federal workers get their back pay, it may be coming as a lump sum. And if it comes as a lump sum, that's gonna push that money they get into a higher tax bracket, which means they're gonna get taxed higher on that amount they receive and actually receive a net less than they would have had they been working. I don't know how the federal government is gonna do it this time, but if they do a lump sum payment, it can actually be more detrimental than if they spread it out over the course of a few months. The problem with that is, if you spread it out over a course of a few months, it may be hard for people to get money to then back pay all the bills they're behind on.
I'm an accepted furlough employee. I know y'all know that by now. There's a lot of things I can't talk about. I can't have an opinion on. I can't talk about it on social media, and I wouldn't talk about it on social media. I'll keep my own personal opinions to myself when it comes to this government shutdown and government, period. I am not going to talk about it on my platform, but I will say is that there's some bullshit. Not knowing how you're going to recover from something like this is very, very stressful. I'm not going to take out any loans because that's just going to put me further in debt. And I find that it's just unnecessary. But the stress of it is what weighs you down and makes you feel helpless. That is annoying.
I just touched upon some federal employees that are furloughed are going to get unemployment, right? Well, here's the kill with that. If you are an accepted federal employee, you are not eligible, as far as I understand, for unemployment benefits. Actually, let me correct myself. It's not that you can't receive unemployment benefits if you are an accepted employee. It says here that eligibility and benefit amounts vary by state, and essential or accepted employees who continue working do not qualify. So then in her case, as she was talking about, she may need to look for other options, such as taking out a loan to pay for her bills. But as she just said, taking out debt debt to pay for debt or expenses is just gonna put you further into a hole. And so now you're in a situation where the best option, at least in my view, is if you're in a situation like this, don't be too proud to go to a food bank like a lot of these federal workers are doing. Don't be too proud to drive Uber or get a side job. Don't be too proud to go work at a place where you might think you're too highbrow to work at, not saying that they do, in order to make ends meet. Even if you have savings put aside, you don't know how long this is gonna last. You want to continue to eat into your emergency fund because then now you're really gonna feel stressed.
Someone asked if I was on unemployment. My reply? No, I'm on hopes, dreams, and prayers. Rent is due in 8 days. Congress needs to get it together. Pass something. Get us paid. Give people their benefits. And it looks like no vote is going on today. So just goes to show you can have it all one day and lose it the next. And I've seen a few comments under the shutdown posts and all that we should have a savings. You know how hard times are right now? I had a savings enough for at least a month of bills and extra. I've exhausted that. So now I am in panic mode. Something's gotta give.
So she says she has about 1 month's worth, or she had 1 month's worth of expenses put aside. Now, if any of you guys follow financial content, which I'm sure you do, you're watching this channel, I follow financial content, I create financial content. The common rule of thumb is to have 3 months at least minimum of emergency funds put aside, of living expenses. But really, a lot of people say closer to 6 months. And some people even take it further and say a year. Some get extreme and say more than a year. I'm on the more extreme side. But again, I am also single, no kids. I keep repeating that for a reason because it just makes it easier. Obviously, I have fewer expenses, fewer responsibilities, fewer liabilities. So in her situation, I don't know if she has kids. I don't know what she has going on. So she only has 1 month of living expenses put away. But as you can see, things can go bad very quickly. And as she just said, things got dark. She didn't use that terminology, but that's pretty much what she's saying. And so now that 1 month is gone like that. And rent's due in 8 days. So what is she gonna do? She's living on hopes and dreams and prayers. I don't know what she plans on doing if the shutdown doesn't end within 8 days, which most likely it won't. Again, will she have to go get a second job? Probably. Will she go get unemployment? Maybe. Will she take out a loan? Hopefully not. But these federal workers are in this precarious position to where they have to make some really tough decisions very, very soon. One of those decisions might be like what the other person said earlier in the video, which is they might just look for a completely new job outside the federal government. So I did want to read one of the comments for this video because I found it, again, very ironic. This person says, my agency requires permission for outside work. Unemployment requires we look for, apply, and if we get the job, accept the work. The people approving the permission forms are furloughed. So she didn't mention getting a second job in this, but she might have to very soon, obviously, in 8 days for sure. The ironic part about it is she may need permission to do that. And the people that are signing the forms for permission, according to this guy or this person, they're furloughed. Again, this is a very, very weird situation. I hope it ends soon because a lot of these people are struggling. And like I said in my other video, it gets real when you see the actual people being affected because a lot of us aren't federal employees. And if we're not flying or not, if we're not receiving federal benefits, we're kind of just going about our daily lives. And we forget that folks are really going through hard times right now. And so when you see these types of videos and read articles and headlines, or not headlines, let's do deeper than that, you start to learn that this is really affecting real life people. And maybe you know someone, a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone who's in the federal government who's going through this right now. And it's just an unfortunate situation. So with that being said, thanks for sticking around and watching the video. If you are a federal employee, I wish the best for you and I hope the shutdown ends quickly, expeditiously, and that you get back to being paid soon, especially if you're working, because going to work and not being paid is a specific type of I don't want to say evil, just pain. I'll say pain. So that being said, guys, thanks for sticking around. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.